Hi friends, today for our read aloud we're going to be reading a really fun story, and this story is called Big Red and the Little Bitty Wolf. It is a backward story of Little Red Riding Hood. Instead of Little Red Riding Hood being the good character and the wolf being the bad character, they're going to switch spots for today's book. In this book, what I want you to pay attention to is the lesson in the story. Something that's really cool about all fairy tales is that they teach us an important lesson. In the traditional tale of Little Red Riding Hood, the lesson is to not talk to strangers. When she talks to the wolf in the woods, the wolf can trick her and go to Grandma's house before she gets there. In this book, I want you to pay attention to what the lesson is. Decide for yourself if you think the lesson is the same as the traditional book or different. Today we're going to be writing about the lesson in this book. Big Red and the Little Bitty Wolf, a story about bullying by Jeannie Franz Ransom. Big Red and the Little Bitty Wolf. I read it wrong because it's backwards. There was only one path that led from where Little Bitty Wolf lived to where he went to school at Pinecone Elementary. And that was a problem. Over the summer, Big Red Riding Hood had moved in with her grandmother. Big Red wasn't just big, she was mean. And now she took the same path through the woods to get to school. Before Big Red moved in, Little Bitty loved to go to school. He loved the soft pad, pad, pad sound his paws made on the path. He loved the feel of the wind tickling his whiskers as it rustled the leaves. And he really, really loved his yellow lunch basket, always packed with his favorite foods. Big Red loved nothing more than teasing and taunting Little Bitty. Sometimes she jumped out from behind a tree. Sometimes she stuck out her big foot and tripped him. Sometimes Big Red snuck up behind Little Bitty and pulled his tail. Little Bitty tried not to whine. He tried not to whimper. He tried not talking to Big Red at all. She is really not being very nice to him at all. Nothing seemed to help. Little Bitty asked his parents what to do. Just tell her to stop, Mom told him. Tell her you don't like it when she teases you. Stop it, Little Bitty said when Big Red kept throwing acorns at him. I don't like that. Big Red laughed. But I do, Big Red said, and she picked up a big acorn and hit him on the nose. Poor Little Bitty. Puff yourself up so you'll look bigger, Dad told him. So the next time Big Red pulled his tail, Little Bitty puffed himself as big as he could. But Big Red just laughed. I'm not scared of a little bitty wolf, she smirked. Little Bitty didn't know what to do. And then one morning, a shadow fell across the path. Little Bitty looked up. It was Big Red. Where do you think you're going? Big Red asked. Little Bitty tried to run by Big Red, but she blocked his way. Not so fast. Big Red grabbed the basket right out of his paws and skipped away. A tisket, a tasket, I've got a brand new basket. Little Bitty was so sad. What would he eat for lunch? What would his parents say when he didn't bring his basket home? Would they make him take his food in a brown bark bag? When Little Bitty Wolf got to school, his teacher, Miss Doe, asked what was wrong. Little Bitty didn't want to tell her. Big Red was looking right at him. Miss Doe sent him to talk to the school counselor, Mr. Know-It Owl. Little Bitty Wolf told him about Big Red. It sounds like quite a problem, Mr. Know-it-owl said. What have you tried to fix it? I asked Big Red to stop bothering me, just like my mom said, Little Bitty told the counselor. And I puffed myself up to look bigger, just like my dad told me, said Little Bitty. But Big Red just laughed at me. And now she has my lunch basket, and I don't know what to do. He wiped his eyes with his tail. Seems to me like you need to do something Big Red doesn't expect you to do, Mr. Know-it-owl said. Like this. Mr. Know-it-owl's head spun all the way around. Little Bitty smiled. My, what a nice smile you have, Mr. Know-it-owl told him. I've never noticed before. You should smile more often. Little Bitty decided he would do just that. On the way home from school, when Big Red jumped out behind a tree, Little Bitty didn't whimper. He didn't whine. He just smiled. Are you smiling at me? Big Red asked. What's going on? Little Bitty just kept smiling. He was so nervous. It was all he could do to keep his paws planted in one place. What's so funny? Big Red asked, taking a step back. Stop looking at me like that. What are you going to do? Little Bitty Wolf laughed. What a silly thing to say. You can have your old basket back, Big Red said. I didn't want it anyway. She tossed the basket on the ground. Little Bitty smiled even bigger. Mr. Know-it-owl was right. Doing something Big Red didn't expect had worked. Maybe he never had smiled at her before. He had a feeling Big Red didn't get so many smiles. He'd made sure she got plenty now. Little Bitty trotted off towards home with his ears up and his tail high, feeling a little bit bigger and a whole lot better. The end. And then these are steps at the end if someone's teasing you, some of the things that you can do. So in this book, Little Bitty learned an important lesson about things that you can do if someone is being mean to you. So for our writing today, we're going to write about one of those strategies of how to tell someone that's not being nice to you to stop, and some things you can do to make yourself feel better.